So very often people would talk to us some years ago as Andre and I as being the godfather of the industry, and then we became the grandfathers of the industry. But I think, to be fair to Andre, he was really the godfather and the grandfather. He really started it. He was the first to do it.
He is the beacon of private equity, not only in South Africa, for the whole continent. And it was his vision to start the industry that has allowed it to blossom to what it is today.
If it was not because of Andre seeing the gap, I'm not sure the private equity industry in South Africa will be what it is today.
I think the origins of private equity probably go back to venture capital in the 1960s in the US, where people formed small pools of capital to do normally venture deals. That involved into the 60s and 70s. And by the time it got to in the 80s, we were quite early. It had evolved in the UK and Europe, but we were quite close behind that. And I think that the spark for our industry was actually the disinvestment by multinationals in South Africa. So you find particularly American multinationals sold their South African businesses to management. And Andre and his team found a very profitable part of that. They supported these teams in buying great businesses at low prices.
So Andre had a vision of becoming a sort of fund manager, a private equity fund manager, third-party fund manager. We were a part, a 100% subsidiary of First National Bank. So for Andre to go ahead and convince at that stage the bank to start a process which will mean that we sort of raise funds from third parties, where the people in First Capital at that stage get incentivized based on things which I think at that stage for the bank was very foreign, was actually very impressive. We had lots of challenges. We started raising our first fund, well, sort of external fund from foreign sources just before the 1994 elections. So for Andre to have a conviction and to have the belief in what he's doing, traveling in America and raising money, it was a major challenge and a major achievement.
Andre and I were raising funds at times when the political environment and the macro environment in South Africa wasn't exactly friendly from our international investor perspective. But we were able, and mostly through Andre's kind of experience, be able to sell a story around South Africa and around private equity in particular, that it's a micro story. And despite that, you can get a benefit from tailwinds from, when the macros are good and the politics is good. Private equity is a much medium to long-term game. And even despite that, we were able to convince investors to put capital to work in South Africa.
Andre can be credited for really founding the industry, and what sits behind that is a number of firsts for the industry. So I think he did the first buyout in South Africa in 1984, and it was a business called Hudeco. It landed up delivering around 10 times money back to investors and an IRR of close to 200%. So a very auspicious start. But from there, he raised the first blind pool capital fund in 1992. And then he raised the first blind pool capital fund that had international investors in 1996. So, I think those many firsts really do kind of allow him to hold the title of founder of the industry on the continent.
Ethos, as an emerging market firm, faced so many challenges over the years, not only macroeconomic ones, but the political changes in South Africa. And what I recall about that is there was always the sense that there was a steady hand leading Ethos through all of these challenges. And I've dealt with many, many private equity firms, multinational, pan-European, very, very large, prominent private equity firms. And I venture to say that no single firm has dealt with so many challenges and succeeded so well amidst those challenges as Ethos has done. And I attribute that entirely to Andre's leadership.
In South Africa, the private equity industry has had to evolve in a highly complex and constantly shifting political and socio-economic context. And moreover, to lead and to succeed in the industry in this country, one really needs to be able to master every aspect of the value chain, from fundraising to deal making to value creation to exit, because we simply don't have the same level of specialization in this country as you would typically find in other developed private equity markets. Andre had the talent to be able to drive excellence in every part of the value chain.
What Andre was really, really good at was ensuring that the pace of change in the organization was faster than the rate of change in the environment, and encouraging us as partners to always think self-critically and objectively about what we were doing that was going to continue to be relevant and continue to deliver returns, and what we had to stop doing and start doing.
He really was a prolific reader, and that enabled him to kind of cut through all the noise in those really important moments, to have a real clarity of thought without being dismissive. And that's probably what I would encourage everybody to do is read as widely as you can, and don't just read about private equity. He was a man that absorbed life, and art and music and all of these other elements. And I think that those were the pieces that made him a great investment professional. It wasn't necessarily just the numbers.
It was terrifying walking into an investment committee meeting knowing that Andre had the insight to pick up immediately on the one single thing that the deal team knew the investment hung on. That made you so much better going into these meetings because you yourself knew what was important to focus in on.
Andre came always across to me as one of the most polite and true gentlemen I've met in the industry. He has shown that this character strength, being respectful to everybody, is something you should do the PE industry, but as a leaver in general.
I would say Andre's character was of a person that is very hardworking, and of a character where, especially when it comes to work, he's always very well prepared. He's a detailed person. He never was a person who would wing things.
Core to who he is as a person, I think, is this deep integrity and an incredible sort of ethical perspective. He constantly reminded us that we were investing other people's money, that we were the custodians and fiduciaries of that capital, and that in every decision we took and every action we took, we had to put our investors' interests first.
Andre's character is probably the greatest thing, and it obviously extends to not just his character as an individual, as pertains to his own moral compass, how he conducts himself, his warmth, his openness, his humor. It's also how caring he is about his own family, and you can see how what a fantastic family man he is.
People may think that Andre is an introvert, but it was particularly during COVID that I discovered how people-driven Andre is at heart. He was literally clawing the doors to get out and interact and engage with people.
Andre is one of those deeply authentic people. You always knew where you stood with Andre. He was always measured, always thoughtful, always diligent, always well prepared for meetings, and always wore a suit. That was Andre.
He also has an incredible fun side. We've had many spirited celebrations in the firm over the years. One of the rules we had in our firm is that at AGMs, no partners were allowed to go to bed before Andre, and he's got the constitution of a buffalo, and so frequently we'd have partners going from the bar to the first tee.
I didn't realize in the time that I was working with Andre as an executive in the Ethos team just how involved and how much he was touching so many other businesses outside of the Ethos portfolio. But I learned this firsthand when I eventually decided to move on from Ethos, set up my own business, Data Diligence, and I reached out to Andre soon after founding that business. And he must have listened to our pitch, 10, 15 times. He went through our pitch deck, he marked it up. Anybody that's worked with Andre knows he's got this very crazy handwriting, quite spidery, and he writes all over things, and he puts a dot here and circles there, and he took this time to do that for me, and he didn't need to do it, and that generosity was just amazing.
Andre has been generous with his experience and with his wisdom. The guidance that I got from him in the early days of our life as Spear, that guidance has been invaluable to me and to my colleagues, and has had a big impact on my life and the life of many professionals who have entered this space. I will be forever grateful for the partnership that I had with him.
The impact that he has had on my career and my life has been profound and immeasurable. And that scenario is here today because of him. Not just because of the generous wisdom that he shared with me and my team, but more so because he believed in us. He went from mentoring and advising us to then investing and ultimately chairing the board at Sonari Capital.
Setting up Omba with my co-founder David Pearson, we met with Andre, just to talk about, what we were up to, our plans. I'll never forget, he was the only person we met who went through every single page of our presentation deck in detail, asking questions. And what was scheduled for an hour meeting ended up being nearly a 2-hour meeting.
I met Andre first when I was probably a first-year candidate attorney, doing probably some very small job on a deal for Ethos at that time. And I met him at a closing. And I remember that he walked around the entire room and thanked every single person who had played a small or large part on that transaction. And it makes me think of that Maya Angelou quote, that people will forget what you did, they'll forget what you said, but they won't forget how you made them feel. And in my experience of Andre, from that day to the present day, is he always treats everybody with the exact same amount of respect, kindness, and courtesy. And I think that's probably my most enduring experience of Andre.
I think what new leaders can learn from Andre is that you have to be a scholar in your own profession. That means read a lot, consult with your peers. And that's one of the ways to stay on top of your game, is to read and read and read to understand what's happening in the market. The other lesson that I've learned from Andre, especially in private equity, is that although we've got a commitment period to invest the capital that has been allocated to managers, that if the environment is not conducive for investment, then it's okay to not invest and return the capital to investors.
What I've learned from Andre is just, how prepared he was for everything. So if we went into even internal meetings, he would have read all the reports, knowing all the background, knowing all the details, and he would always have said, even if we go into negotiations, the other guy might be louder and he might be make more noise and things like that. But if you're prepared and you've got the facts, you're gonna win.
Andre interrogated everything, but that was the foundation for the disciplines around rigor that all of us who had the opportunity to work closely with him will get to carry forward for the better success of the industry as a whole.
Private equity has become a big industry globally. And I would feel that South Africa has evolved quite closely with it, in lockstep with it. It's definitely brought a few things. One is it's brought foreign capital to South Africa in quite big proportions. It's also brought a way of governance where typically private equity owners are quite intense about management plans and forecasts and business plans and making businesses work. So I think that culture has also got embedded into our system in South Africa.
Capital we raised and the investments that we made were mostly into growth. And with companies to grow, they will need to hire more people and they will need to spend capex, bringing in machinery, plant and machinery. So that benefits South Africa in that you're creating capacity, both in production and also you're creating jobs that are much needed.
When Ethos was established a very, very long period ago, you know, that democracy was only just coming through. You saw the first Black economic empowerment transactions. You saw, as businesses were divesting from South Africa, you know, local money was buying these assets. And Andre played this fundamental role in that happening and enabling both the acquisition of South African business by South African money initially, but then the reintroduction of foreign direct investment into South Africa through the vehicles, the fund vehicles that Ethos put in place, particularly once we had international LPs. And that impact is so wide. It's you know, if you think about dropping a pebble in a pond, the ripples are far and far and wide. And I don't think Andre dropped a pebble. I think he dropped a boulder.
On my side here from Cologne, I think it is one of the most well-deserved achievements being given to somebody in South Africa. I fully endorse this and wish Andre all the best going forward. And I think he will remain a true role model for players in the industry.
I think the Lifetime Achievement Award is long overdue. I think if I could name any one person who has been a leading light in South African private equity, it's Andre. He's been there, again, through so many iterations when they had to become independent from their banking relationship, and they've been through everything. And Andre was always at the helm and always was a very strong hand. And so I think this award is so well deserved.